RJ Shaw is on the line with us here, and we're going to talk about his book, Dirt Road Reckoning. How are you today?
Good, good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Now, can you sort of give us a summary of Dirt Road Reckoning and what makes it stand out in the genre?
Well, it's a Southern crime novel set in the mountains of East Tennessee. The story revolves around a serial killer who went dormant 20 years ago and then strikes again. It's based off a serial killer case I worked on when I was in the FBI. And so I always found that story to be interesting. And I thought it should be adapted to a book, but with a twist.
Mm.
And the twist is that I have a conspiracy in the book that involves the federal government and the FBI and their efforts to keep an innocent man who confessed to the crime in jail while the real serial killer goes free.
Yeah. And what was it that inspired you to write the book?
Well, I spent 30 years in the FBI, and if you work the type of cases I worked, which are mostly violent crimes, you end up seeing a lot of different things and interesting things, and things that the normal person never see or hear about. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to write a novel based on my experiences and using my knowledge of law enforcement and the FBI to give a different take on the crime genre that you normally don't see.
Yeah. And what would you say are some of the key themes that you explore in the book?
Well, it's two themes. It's a David versus Goliath story because
Yeah.
the protagonist is a small town sheriff who used to be an FBI agent. He retires, becomes a sheriff of his home county in East Tennessee, and he's going up against the not only the FBI but the Dixie Mafia to try to exonerate this man that's been sitting in prison for 20 years. The second theme would be the corrupting effects of the lust for power at any
Mm.
cost.
Yeah. And of course, the protagonist is Sheriff Gus Wallace. How does he develop throughout the story?
Well, he starts out. He's a very senior, very seasoned, experienced FBI agent who retires after 25 years and moves back home. And the sheriff in his home county is actually indicted for corruption, and so he's convinced by his friend to run for sheriff to try to clean up the law enforcement there. So
Mm.
he's bored and he decides to do that. So when he comes into the office of sheriff, he's not trusted by the local cops. His main detective for the sheriff's office ran against him for the position and lost to him. So he's got an antagonistic relationship to the sheriff. And the sheriff really doesn't feel like the investigators and the cops in his department are really up to the task. So as the story progresses, he learns to trust them and realizes that they're actually better than he thought. And the sheriff's department and the county populace really come to see that the sheriff wants to do the right thing and is very good at what he does. So they learn to trust him. And by the time the story ends, they're on the same sheet of music than when they start.
Yeah. And how did your own personal experiences in law enforcement shape the narrative of the book?
Well, as I said, I've been with the FBI for 30 years. I worked violent crimes. I've worked a little bit of everything. I worked a lot of violent crimes, a lot of kidnapping cases. I worked a serial murder case, a lot of drugs and organized crime and such as that. In addition, I was a FBI SWAT member for 10 years. I was the sniper team leader for our SWAT team, and I was the behavioral science representative, field representative for 17 of those 30 years. I was the agent that local cops would come to if they had a case that they wanted the profilers look at. I would get the first eyes on and give them my take. And then if they wanted the profilers to do a full profile, then I would bring it to the profiler. So I've had a lot of extensive experience working just a wide variety of different things, and I've dealt with a lot of different bad guys and a lot of different type of cases. So I just thought that this would be, I have a lot of stories I can tell,
Hmm.
and they're a little different than what you normally think because I came to the Bureau when we were a different organization than what we are now. We were strictly a pure law enforcement organization, and I was able to stay on the law and criminal side my whole career. And you don't get that so much anymore in the FBI. So I think I bring a little different take than what you get normally.
Yeah. And how does the southern setting contribute to the atmosphere and the tension of the story?
Well, I chose this setting because A, this is where I grew up, so I know the area. And I
Yeah.
also know that it's an area that has never really been highlighted in literature. It's the East, the Southern Appalachian Mountains in East Tennessee. It's not in a big city. It's a small, small town, very rural, very hardy people that have a very much set in their way mentality. And I just thought that it would be an interesting setting for a story as opposed to a bigger city type of setting. The initial setting is in Cumberland Gap, Tennessee, which is the original gateway to the West because that's where Boone opened up the West to America in the 1770s. And a lot of the people are descendants of that hardy frontier stock, and they have a different turn to them. They have a different way of looking at the world. They're tough, they're independent, they're very suspicious of authority, they're suspicious of outsiders. Yet at the same time, they'll do anything in their power. Unusual dichotomy to highlight those type of people and that area. And I just thought people would find it a little different than, say, a crime novel set in, I don't know, Atlanta or Nashville or Alabama. Just
Yeah.
something a little more mountainous, a little more akin to people that want to get back to nature and rural settings. I thought it would be appealing to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do the themes of government corruption and conspiracy drive the plot forward?
Well, without getting into the details of the book, 'cause I don't want to give away some of the twists and turns to it. But as the book proceeds on, as he investigates the initial murder that happens after he takes office, the more he delves into it, the more he realizes that this murder is very likely connected to three murders that happened 20 years earlier.
Mm.
And as he investigates that, he realizes that a man, a mentally challenged man, has been convicted of those initial crimes, and the evidence just doesn't add up to him. It appears that there may have been either a rush to judgment or maybe a wholesale railroading of this man just to solve the case and to get everybody off his book because the people at the time were very afraid that there's a serial killer going around killing young ladies. So they wanted to close this case. As he realizes that the FBI was actually involved with the initial investigation, that opens up a whole new avenue because powers to be at the FBI now to keep from possibly being embarrassed, try to thwart his investigation by inserting themselves in it and to try to block his progress to exonerate this man for their own special purposes.
Yeah. And who do you think is the primary audience for Dirt Road Reckoning, and how do you think they'll connect with the story?
Well, I think anybody that people that like Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch series will like it because
Yeah.
Gus Wallace and Harry Bosch are very similar in their nature and their outlook. They're very stoic, they're pragmatic, but yet underneath it all, they really look at the world as like, everyone counts or no one counts. Justice needs to be served regardless of who the people are. Power and position is immaterial if a crime's been committed. So people that like that genre of books will really like this. And I think people that are looking at the just life and saying, okay, who's looking out for the little guy? And anyone that feels like the world really is kind of, it sometimes feels like the world's been put upon them or there's no one really looking out for them, will be interested in this book because I delve into those type of issues in this book because, as I said, this is a David versus Goliath type of story, and
Yeah.
people that are looking for some entertainment, but yet can relate to the subject matter will be interested in this.
Absolutely. And in Dirt Road Reckoning, the sheriff finds himself pitted against the massive power of the FBI. So, can you discuss the dynamics of this conflict and how it drives the narrative forward?
Sure. I mean, the FBI is a behemoth. As I said, I've been with the Bureau, was with the Bureau for 30 years, and I know what the FBI is capable of. And I've joked many times in the past that if the FBI decides they're going to move a mountain 3 foot to the left or the right, they'll move that mountain. We have the means, we have the bodies, we have the knowledge, we have the technology, we have the resources. So they're very powerful and they have long stretching arms to do what they want.
Yeah.
But they're a bureaucracy, and a bureaucracy can be very cumbersome. Whereas the sheriff in this story, Gus Wallace, he understands what he's up against because he was an FBI agent for many years, but he's in a much smaller organization. He can be very quick and nimble in his investigations. He's the sheriff. He doesn't have to ask for permission to do something. He can just do it. So he uses his ability to be quick, nimble, make quick decisions, and move fast to his advantage. Even though it seems like he's overpowered, he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve that he can use based on the size and his knowledge of his enemy.
Yeah. Well, are there any upcoming projects or future plans related to Dirt Road Reckoning that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm outlining the next chapter in this story. It's going to involve some of the same characters and a few new ones. And I'm also pondering and thinking about maybe doing a spin-off story because there's a couple of characters in this book that I really enjoyed writing about and I think would be a fun story to tell if I can come up with the right idea. I just need to make sure that I have something that's solid and would be entertaining for folks.
Absolutely. Well, in the meantime, where are we able to find this book, Dirt Road Reckoning?
It's on Amazon. It's going to be you can pre-order right now till July 4th, and on July 5th it will drop. You can pick up the paperback or there's an ebook, and I am working on getting the audiobook ready and should be out shortly.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great having you on the show.
All right, thank you very much.